Hello, this is Alex from Music Sequencing, and today we're going to be talking about compression. I'm going to be going over all the controls, and I hope by the end of the video you'll not only know what they are for, but why and how you adjust them in order to get the sound you want to get with compression. So we're going to start by looking at a snare hit, and the goal with compression here is to get this snare hit bigger and fatter. So if we look at this tracing here in orange, this is an actual snare hit. And in order to make this bigger and fatter with compression, what we're going to do is I'm going to copy this, and we're just using half of it so it's easier to kind of see what we're doing. And basically, this transient, so the initial peaks, we want to turn those down so that the rest of the waveform, the rest of the snare hit, the body, is louder in relation to the initial peaks. So basically, if we compress right, what it'll look like is these will be reduced, maybe something like this, and the sound will be fatter and bigger. So this is what it looks like, and we'll get into what it sounds like. But first, let's go through the compressor controls and see exactly how we're going to achieve this. So I'm going to copy this uncompressed one again. And first, let's start off with the threshold. So the threshold is the point at which the compressor starts working. If the threshold is too high, the compressor will not compress. But once we lower the threshold to the point that the peaks are going above the threshold, then we start getting some compression. So how much compression do we do? So let's say we set the threshold to there, ideally. How hard we are compressing this is going to be controlled mainly by the ratio. So we're going to go pretty hard to do this. So we're going to do an 8-to-1 ratio. That's a pretty high ratio for compression. It's almost into limiting territory. So what this is above the threshold, we're going to divide this into 8 for this peak here. 4, and 5. I think that's 8. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. So this peak, we'll just focus on this one for now, is above the threshold. If it is getting compressed at an 8-to-1 ratio, it will go all the way down to being that loud. And that is the compression. Okay. Now, when the compressor starts compressing, that has to do with attack. Now, what attack actually is, it is a rate of how fast it compresses. So let's say these are milliseconds here, these green lines. Okay, so now there's a common myth that compressors won't start attacking the transients until it reaches the attack point. That's actually not true. Once it goes above the threshold, it will start getting attacked. Let's say our attack is set to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like around 6. What the heck's going on here? The attack is set to 6 milliseconds. So when 6 milliseconds go by, we will be getting near an 8-to-1 compression ratio, not even quite 8-to-1. So if we set the attack this high, these transients will get attacked, but only a little bit, and we won't actually get what we want to get. You know, what we want to do is actually get these transients. So what we need is a faster attack. And in this scenario specifically, we want basically the fastest friggin' attack that we can possibly get. So if we set the attack really fast here, what it'll do is start pulling these down aggressively, almost to like an 8-to-1 ratio immediately. And by the time we get to this transient here, it probably will be an 8-to-1 ratio, and it will really go down to there. This one will be 8-to-1, you know. Now, release is the next thing that is important in a compressor. And release is almost the inverse of what an attack is. Release is gain restoration. So this compressor has started attacking, these transients, right? If we have a long release out to here, it is still going to be attacking the transients. And we don't want that, actually. If we have a release out to here, the compressor is actually, it's going to be held down right in the beginning, but it's going to keep reducing these peaks because it is not releasing. And gradually, as it gets out to, a certain point, the release point, the peaks will be less and less reduced. So in the middle of the releasing, it might be 4-to-1, and then eventually it'll be, 1-to-1, no compression. So in order to not reduce these peaks here, we want also, can you guess, a fastest possible release. So that we are just grabbing these initial transients. So one more time, we'll go through what is going to happen. So it attacks these transients almost immediately because it's fast, and aggressively because it is 8-to-1 and fast. And then as soon as it is starting to get lower, it does not need to attack anymore. It's below the threshold, and it will release the compressor and stop doing gain reduction. Now, I hope this makes sense. I'm going to actually compress this snare drum for real, and we're going to have a look at how it sounds and also what it looks like, just for clarification purposes. Always rely on your ears more than your eyes, but this is such an abstract thing. I think visuals just really can help solidify the concepts for people. All right, so here is that exact snare hit. Now let's put on a compressor. Now our goal is to turn down these transients here. Okay, so I am going to turn off the auto gain. Now let me go back to the drawing for 1 second to explain makeup gain. So I have compressed this snare hit. It is going to sound quieter. Look at its level compared to the original. It's going to sound quieter. So basically makeup gain is we turn it back up. And then the body of it, here, this body is louder. And that gives us our bigger sustain. But let's actually hear what this sounds like. Enough with the visuals, and I'll play it for you. So I'm turning off the auto gain, and we're going to do the makeup gain ourselves. So first things first, I already decided I wanted a high ratio, so I'm going to set that at 8-to-1. And let's turn down the threshold. We're getting a 5 dB. Looks like. That's a good amount of compression. Now I'm going to turn off the knee. The knee is kind of like a blend of the threshold and the attack. And use your ears to figure out if you want that. But we're going to not use any knee right now. Do it pretty harsh. And turn the attack and release way down. Okay. Now if I turn it off, it's obviously quieter. So then we need some makeup gain. Let's get it to 2.4. Okay, you can hear there is a little bit more body in there, but there's it without it. We are as fast as we can go in this compressor, but this compressor isn't fast enough. It says it's 0, but that's malarkey, I'll tell you that. So we're going to use this one, the FET compressor. And a classic FET compressor is the 1176. And you can think of FET, it's fast. It actually means field, what is it? Basically, there's an electric field, and when it changes, just think of FET is more fast. So now let's see what happens just by changing the algorithm here. Look at how much reduction we're getting now. And look at how fast that needle is moving. I'm actually going to turn the threshold up a little bit so we don't get so much reduction. And let's turn the makeup gain to match where we were. All right. So that is it's bigger. There's originally fatter. You can hear the body so much more. And this is actually peaking at 2.4. This is peaking at 4.3. Now this is pretty extreme, and I can make it more extreme. You know, not necessarily what you want to do. You know, this might be way too much body and kind of kills it. But if you want that really fat compressed snare, that's it. Now you can open it up a little bit to preserve some transients, but you see, can't use nearly as much makeup gain. Now I'm going to set the attack back on as fast as it can go, and I'm going to print this out to show you what the difference looks like in the actual waveform. Let me get it to around the level. We're at -3. This is -2.4. Oh man, look at that. A big fat body of the snare. So that is one way to add more body, but that is not necessarily how you always want to use compression, of course. I could actually reverse this, essentially. And now, if I was to try to reverse what I just did and get kind of back to this waveform, that sound, what would I do? Can you guess what kind of attack and what kind of release I would need? Okay, so I'm just gonna go on and test this on the fly. Let's see if we can do it. So what I'm gonna do is I'll keep this compressor, and we're gonna basically do more compression. Well, let's see. Let's experiment. So we're trying to preserve the transient and turn. Basically, we want to preserve this and turn down this. So we're giving it more punch, I suppose. All right, let's print that waveform, see what we've got. All right, we're kind of back to where we were. I didn't compress it as much. I probably could have made the attack a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more compression, but now we've gone from this fat one back to this bigger hit and more body. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand attack and release. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you compression on a bass using a classic compressor, one of my favorites, the LA2A. And they call this a leveling amplifier. And this is a compressor that you can use not to mess with the transients so much because it has a slower attack. In fact, look at this. Where is the attack? Where is the release? Where's the threshold? Where is that stuff? Well, it's built into this compressor, into the algorithms, which are modeled after an actual analog compressor. And how you use this is the right here is basically more compression, so peak reduction. And this is your makeup gain, and it's as simple as that. Now, I'm going to play something. I'm going to play it for you and show you what the difference this can make. Okay, that last note, the boing, it kind of starts to fade in volume as we're going along, right? So this is a good case to use something like the LA2A or a longer attack and release to smooth things out. Or if you got an LA2A model, this is great for that. And it's great for vocals. It's very musical. So let's turn it on. And turn up a little more makeup gain. Do you hear how the sustain of that note, you can hear it pretty much through the end? And that's another classic use of compression, is leveling things out. If you have a bass line in your mix that sometimes it's too loud, sometimes it's too soft, and you want a musical way to level it out, this is a great compressor to do that, the LA2A. I hope that has demystified and helped you understand compression a bit more. There's an article on musicsequencing.com if you want to read about that. Look at the pictures. I'll be coming out with a new video that covers all these old compressors and what they're good for, like the LA2A, an optical compressor, or the 1176, a FET compressor that we talked about earlier, and maybe some VCAs, tube compression and stuff. So please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Peace.